At the end of the 90s, heavy music was coming back into the classrooms, into the youth of America, thanks to the popularity of nu metal. In Germany, Rammstein was a band that had no idea that one of their songs was going to become a huge smash in America and make them one of Germany's biggest musical exports to America in recent memory. That song, of course, was Du hast off of Sehnsucht, and Rammstein has since enjoyed success both in their home country, in America, and around the world, with some, notable roadblocks also in their way. One such roadblock is the fact that there are still people that cannot get on board with this band, and throughout history, ever since the exportation over to America, there have been even more problems for this band to really keep their fan base and keep themselves on top. But there are some reasons that feel really silly. Ones that maybe might be based off of a little bit of fear from the past, or fear based off of events that were happening in the nation itself. My name is coverkillernation, and thanks to you guys that were in stream just a couple of days ago, here are 5 reasons that people hate Rammstein. And we of course start with number 5. Number 5, I can't understand them! That's right, there's a whole entire subculture of music fan that if they can't understand the lyricism, they just immediately don't like the band. And this is especially true in America. Some call it American ignorance, other people just call it silly. I'm of the mind to call it just silly. Rammstein is of course a band that performs in German, considering German is their first language. Now, while they do have some tracks where they do sing in English, and they have actually an English version of some of their songs or some of their albums that you can sometimes find, oh my god, and they've even done covers that have been done in English, this is still something where they opt to speak in their native tongue, which is very, very fair, unlike the Lindman CD that we just saw this past year, where Till was poised to speak in both English, German, and it was fun. However, there are still a lot of fans that simply ignore Rammstein in the grand scheme of things, principally because they cannot understand a single word that they say, and that is probably one of the silliest reasons ever. But I guess whenever you have a lot of lyrical responsibility with songs such as use a stupid hoe, there are some people that really can't understand that either. Number 4, the music itself. It's really low on the list this time, principally because there's not a lot of complaining about the music of Rammstein. However, some feel that it is a little bit simplistic, but you have to remember the time frame in which they became huge. This is an industrial side of heavy metal or nu metal or alternative, whatever you really want to deem this band as, and it's one that is able to employ some of the more simpler notions of this, with a lot more heaviness being the center point of the music itself, of the narrative structure of the songs, as opposed to it being similar to, say, Trent Reznor and 9 Inch Nails, that really tries to build lavish musical tapestries, and sometimes is able to hit the mark, but other times it seems a little bit over-ambitious. So based off of this very simplistic style of music, to put it alongside with that whole nu metal crop that it came up with, a lot of people have felt that Rammstein is not for them, simply because it's not ambitious enough. Number 3, they're German, which of course means that they're Nazis. Yeah. I'm going to leave a link in the description box below that proves this, that there is a group out there that believes this. Whether or not there's validity to this or not really is not even up in the air. The one thing that needs to be stated is that this is a band, this is music, and I think that there's a lot of misinterpretation that does involve Rammstein lyrics, and this is something that has also been proven with the way in which fans react to websites like this. However, of course, since they're German, and since, Nazis were a thing back in the 1930s, 1940s, whatever it may be, they have to be associated with them, because anybody from Germany immediately has Nazi ties. That's a stereotype, and god damn it, we love stereotypes here in America, unless of course it applies to us, then we're fucking triggered. Number 2, their music incites violence, and that's where this takes a turn to actually a bit of the serious. Directly after the success of Du hast and the success of Sehnsucht for Rammstein, unfortunately, America had to suffer a massive tragedy. The massive tragedy of the Columbine High School shooting that happened in Colorado is one that happened just a couple of short years after the introduction of Rammstein to America after Du hast. Unfortunately, after this tragedy occurred, it was then revealed through the media that the 2 assailants were avid fans of bands such as Rammstein, such as Marilyn Manson, and also enjoyed first-person shooter video games such as Doom. This, of course, caused a massive backlash by concerned parents of their children and what they happen to be listening to and what they happen to be playing on their PC or on their game consoles. This, of course, causing the backlash, causing bands such as Rammstein or Marilyn Manson to endure a lot of headache whenever it came to touring in America in support of their music or just even getting it played on the radio. There was actually some locations in this country where there was a blackout of songs by these two artists, and KFMDM was unfortunately a part of it as well. Many people believe that these two assailants were members of a counterculture that was having that violent tendency really incited among them, thanks to the music and the gaming industry saying and really launching the whole investigation and the whole counterculture of society that music, movies, and video games and violence really are linked and cause something amongst young people that causes them to be violent. Of course, this is something that has been repeated and has sort of come back up in at least a little bit of a way with every subsequent shooting that has happened here in America, with other things that have happened worldwide. And even though it's not something that you hear as much these days, it is still something that people hold on to. For a long period of time in the 2000s, if you were a young person and you listened to a Rammstein or a Marilyn Manson, you may have encountered a parent that was a little bit less than thrilled that you were exposing their little Jimmy or their little Jessica to such a thing. And of course, if you wore a trench coat or did any of the other things that this counterculture exposed, then you were also seen as public enemy number one. Either that or you scared people to death. That was just sort of the reality of it. And unfortunately, based off of that, Rammstein did lose some sales. However, they still maintained themselves as a band and still had this sort of draw and allure. And eventually, Rammstein's music was back on the shelves. Rammstein was still played on the radio. And Rammstein was seen once again as not really the enemy, but instead just an artist, which is sort of a nice ending to the story, except for the fact that there are still fans out there that use this as a reason to distance themselves from the band and actually tell their children not to listen to it whatsoever. In fact, most of them will just outright say, don't listen to heavy metal. And that brings us to number one, which is a really odd one. They're an edgy band for high school teenagers to scare their classmates, which is sort of associated with number two. Growing up is really, really hard. Everything used to be so nice in high school, but now you have to worry about getting a job and a mortgage, and you knocked up the first person that you saw, and you really, really don't like them all that much. Yeah, growing up really, really sucks. Why can't we go back to the days of high school whenever we could just walk down the old hallway listening to Rammstein and saying that our grandfather was a secret bestie of Adolf Hitler himself? That's right, this is actually a group that many people have used as testimony. Their testimony has been that they no longer like the band because they simply outgrew them, if that's something that you could even believe. Outgrowing this band seems to be one of the biggest reasons that are out there that folks simply do not like this band any longer. They enjoyed the experience whenever they were in high school. They used it to get a little bit of attention, were a little bit edgy about things, and that's about it. As time has progressed, they simply have moved on to other styles of music, probably something boring like Yanni. But either than that, it's still the overall idea of nu metal itself. This is why nu metal is seen as just a trend in music instead of something that continues on into this day, although some may argue that point. The basic element of nu metal was one that was experienced by just, one small group of the American teenage counterculture, and it's something that got them a lot of different attention, and of course, based off of events such as Columbine, did get them some press that was less than lackluster. However, Rammstein being a band that you simply outgrow, you're actually missing out on a lot of great music. Rammstein as a band has certainly grown up a little bit, and they've been able to produce some great music and some great albums ever since Sehnsucht and ever since the nu metal craze has sort of died down. It's to the point where even in Germany they have had one of their albums placed in an index that would not be sold. Should make them seem edgy, but in reality, whenever you read the story about why it was in there, it seems kind of odd. But that's just sort of the way that it is. Here in America, it takes a school shooting. Over in Germany, it took potential violence to women. Who really has their priorities straight? And there you have it, 5 reasons why people hate Rammstein. And this is something that, honestly, you don't hear as much about on the surface. However, it is still very prevalent in the underground. There are still many people that distance themselves from this group, albeit most of them happen to be relatively over the age of 25, we will say. Whenever it comes to the teenage youth, this is still a band that sometimes is used for the same reason as number one, as an edgy band to walk down the classroom and say, "Ooh, I'm actually Hitler's great-great-grandnephew. Fuck you." but even still, it's something that, when used just for edge, really falls flat, and really can you consider them a fan in the first place. Do you think that there's any reasons that we missed? Leave them in the comments below. My name is CoverKillerNation, and if you like the 5 Reasons series, do subscribe. We do these quite often, and I will talk to you guys next time.